Welcome back. All right, so a topic that's out there in the hockey world right now is goaltending, and more importantly, from a Canadian perspective, Canadian goaltending. So I'm wearing the jersey of Patrick Roy. Patrick Roy was the goaltender that inspired a lot of French Canadian goaltenders in the 80s and early 90s, and all of a sudden we had a bunch of French Canadian goaltenders in the NHL, and that was why. He brought in the butterfly, made it more popular, and there were a lot of guys emulating Patrick Roy. Suddenly you had athletes that wanted to be goaltenders because back in the day, and I'm thinking 80s, 70s, and whatnot, a lot of the time, if you ended up playing goal, it's because that was where you ended up. Like, there was, sorry, well, you got to play goal. I don't want to play goal. Well, we need a goaltender. We'll get you out after the first period and we'll put somebody else in. And this was true in all levels of hockey. And so Patrick Roy revolutionized it, but it has changed. There's a cost to being a goaltender as well. So if you're coming into minor hockey, if you're training your child for hockey, if you train them and you're like, well, he wants to be a goaltender, you could be looking at an extra $1,000 for equipment. You can be looking at a lot more money. And then in terms of development, it hasn't been there. So I want to look at the numbers right now. National Hockey League goaltenders by nationality. I got this from Quant Hockey. So Canada, 22 goaltenders are Canadian currently that's played in the NHL this season. 19 from the US, 9 from Russia, 9 from Sweden, 8 from Finland, 7 from Czechia, 2 from Germany, and 1 each from Slovakia, Latvia, Switzerland, and Denmark. But as you go back, and I went back 5 years, you can see the difference. 2017, 2018, 38 were from Canada, 23 from the US, 9 from Finland, 8 from Sweden, 5 from Czechia, 5 from Russia, 2 from Slovakia, 2 from Germany, 1 each from Denmark, Switzerland, and Belarus. But by percentage, Canadian percentages really dropped. 2012, 2013, it's even more so that there were 35 Canadian goaltenders, 14 from the US, 9 from Sweden, 8 from Finland, 6 from Russia, 4 from Czechia. I know it was Czech Republic then, but just to keep it, just keep it the same all the way across. 2 for Slovakia, 2 for Germany, 1 for Switzerland, 1 for Belarus. 2007, 2008. Oh, you want to see a difference. 45 Canadian goaltenders in 07, 08. 11 from the US, 10 from Finland, 5 from Sweden, 4 from Switzerland, 4 from Czechia, 3 from Russia, 3 from Germany, 2 from Slovakia, 1 each from Belarus and France. And if we go back 20 years to 2002, 2003, you can see how there, and I don't want to call it a crisis. I keep seeing that as it's the crisis in net. It's just, it's not been important. Canada's not put that on the list of the most important things when you look at the minor hockey system. They're just not developing goaltenders. So there were 51 Canadian goaltenders in 2002, 2003, 14 American, 6 Finland, 5 Czechia, 4 Sweden, 3 Russia, 2 Switzerland, 2 Latvia, a German, a French goaltender, Slovakia, and Austria. That French goaltender, that'd be Cristobal Huet. But going from 51 to 22, when you've got 2 more teams than you had, the US goes from 14 to 19, Finland goes from 6 to 8, Czechia goes from 5 to 7, Sweden goes from 4 to 9. Sweden was known as a country, too, where the goaltending was really a problem. That's no longer a perception that's out there when it comes to Swedes. The Russians have gone from 3 to 9, the Russians as well. I remember Russian goaltenders coming over with hype, and they just weren't very good in the late 80s, early 90s, and whatnot. And so there was sort of a swagger when it came to the fact that Patrick Roy, we had Marty Brodeur, and in 2003, all 3 of the finalists for the Vezina were Canadian. Brodeur, Turco, Belfour, all Canadian goaltenders. 2004, you have Brodeur, Kiprasov, and Luongo. So 2 of the 3 are Canadian. 2006, Kiprasov, Finnish, wins it that year. Brodeur, Canadian. Lundqvist, Swedish. Not Canadian, Lundqvist, although the way he played and everything, we could make him an honorary Canadian, but I don't know that would work. 2007, there was a tie for 3rd in the voting for the Vezina. So Brodeur and Luongo are 1-2. Both Canadian. You got Kiprasov and Lundqvist there. 2008, Brodeur's the only Canadian out of the top 3. Nabokov, who is Russian. Lundqvist, Swedish still. 2009, Tim Thomas, USA, wins. Steve Mason was 2nd that year, and of course that was his great year with Columbus. Backstrom, Finland, Nicholas Backstrom as well. So it was confusing for a few years there, where you had the goaltender Nicholas Backstrom, and you had the forward Nicholas Backstrom. I'm pretty sure they were spelled the same way. So it got a little confusing. 2010, Ryan Miller wins his Vezina trophy. American, of course. Brizgalov was second, Russian. Brodeur, Canadian, third. 2011, it was Tim Thomas again, USA. Pekka Rinne, just too good in 2011. He was number 2, Finland, of course. Luongo, Canadian. 2012, you have no Canadians on the list here. It's Lundqvist from Sweden, Quick from USA, Rinne from Finland. 2013, you got Bobrovsky, Russian, Lundqvist, Swedish, Niemi, Finnish, and Antti Niemi being in the top 3. It's still a bit of a surprise when I see Antti Niemi in the top 3. Not that I don't disagree. Like, I understand he's a good goaltender at times, but yeah, it is a bit of a surprise to see him in the top 3, and he's got a cup ring, too. So, 2014, Rask wins. He's Finnish, of course. Varlamov, Russian, is second, and Bishop from the USA is third. Now, 2015, you have Carey Price. And Carey Price, I saw get mentioned yesterday from people who want to say, hey, Canadian goaltending's okay. The thing is, Carey Price has been in the league for a while, and he was drafted in 2005. So, the fact that Carey Price is still seen as one of the better Canadian goaltenders, if not for injury, I think that tells you a lot about the state of Canadian goaltending. Rinne, Finnish. Dubnyk, Canadian, of course. That's your top 3 from 2015. 2016, Holtby, Canadian, ends up winning it. 2 Americans, second and third, Bishop and Quick. 2017, Russian Bobrovsky wins it, but Holtby and Price were second and third. Again, Canadian goaltenders. Remember, Holtby's not playing this year either. So, when you look at the recent seasons, you got Marc-Andre Fleury winning in 2021. Canadian, of course, but Marc-Andre Fleury drafted in 2003. It definitely seems like there's issues, and in what I was reading up on, hockey practice isn't designed around goaltenders, it's designed around the skaters. For parents, it really is discouraging. One other thing that got mentioned, and this is accurate, is that goaltenders take a lot of verbal abuse from people. And so if you've got a little kid who's 6 or 7 years of age, and you've got a parent that's yelling, that goalie sucks, he needs to come out, and they're a little kid, that's a problem. And so I could understand a parent, who goes to, say, 2 or 3 games for little Timmy there, and, Timmy's having a bit of a struggle in net, but he's trying, but you got somebody and some goober in the crowd beaking off about how terrible he is, plus you've paid an extra $1,000 for his equipment. You might be less likely to want him to stay in net. You might be more likely to say, you know what, we think you're better off being a skater. So I think really what has to change is that there has to be more emphasis put on development of goaltenders to get them ready for the National Hockey League, because it's very expensive. So having programs like Timbits Hockey, and just having programs where you're helping kids with costs can help, but you have to have that training there. And basically, at a minor league level, there's been a shortage of goaltenders. I mean, again, parents can't pay for it, and kids probably don't want to take that kind of verbal abuse. And that happens right up to the NHL. And I've talked about that, how a goaltender allows a bad goal, and immediately, everywhere you look, people talk about a sieve and how terrible he is. Remember that goalie allowed from center ice? Whereas when a forward makes a mistake, which might be just as boneheaded, he has line mates that can bail him out. He has a defense that can bail him out, and a goaltender that can bail him out. When the goaltender makes that same mistake, there is no one there to bail him out. Unless Jacob Slavin's behind him somewhere, but those minor league kids don't have the option to have Jacob Slavin making the save on the goal line. But it is an issue. It is an ongoing issue. When you look at the best goalies right now, like this year, we had Shesterkin, Markstrom, and Saros were your top 3. Shesterkin, arguably the best goaltender. And, I mean, Carter Hart's a very good young goaltender in Philadelphia, but he stands out a little bit because he is a younger Canadian goaltender, and he can be elite level, but he hasn't been top 3 yet for this award. Vasilevsky, arguably one of the best goalies in the league, if not the best as well. And Canada doesn't really have somebody in that conversation now that Carey Price, at this point, is dealing with injury and may not play again. So I guess the question then becomes, it's twofold on this one. One, who is going to be that next Marty Brodeur, Patrick Roy goaltender who is Canadian and a hero? Luongo comes to mind as well. Luongo, at the Olympics was excellent. So who's that next guy? And who's it going to be? And if we had an Olympic team built right now, what would the goaltending look like for Team Canada? So I guess, and the other question would be too, the idea of offsetting the cost for the goaltender. I don't know how people would feel about that, but it is expensive. It really is. It is ridiculous. I know when I was just looking at chest protectors a couple years ago, I was floored at some of the costs for goalie gear, and a lot of it was junior sized. I was like, that is a ridiculous price for junior sized equipment. I understand that that's expensive to produce. I understand the company wants to make their money back, but for a normal family on a normal income, that's just not going to work. For a family who's, living paycheck to paycheck, the cost of goalie equipment is prohibitive. And again, when you get past the cost, and if you can afford it, you also have to have the development. And by all accounts, in Canada, it hasn't been a priority with developing goaltenders, and that needs to change. There's a program in Cole Harbour that might turn that around. We might see some goaltenders coming out of Nova Scotia within the next 10 years. Because that's where it starts. You've got it at the grassroots level, then it'll build its way up. And so what we've seen is there's been this negligence when it comes to goaltenders and their development, and now it's starting to hit all the other leagues as well. So now we're seeing it at World Juniors. You can look and go, well, Canadian goaltending sucks. Well, I think after one game against the Czech team, might be a little early to say the goaltending sucks altogether, but B, yes, we have seen a drop-off in the number of elite goaltenders that are Canadian. We have seen the rise of goaltenders from other countries. And that's part of it, too, is that countries like Finland, Sweden, Russia, they're developing really good goaltenders, really good goaltending prospects. And it's on Canada to catch up. It's great to try to develop the next, Sidney Crosby, the next Eric Lindros, the next big star player up front. But you got to develop your goaltenders too. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And if you were in charge of, say, Hockey Canada, what would you do to fix the goaltending issue that we've seen with kids just not playing goaltenders? Minor leagues not being able to necessarily fill those positions easily and having to get creative about finding goaltenders. And also, why aren't we just, when parents are yelling and screaming like that about little kids, why aren't they being kicked out? That's a question I've always had. I think that when there are little kids out there that are 8, 9, 10 years old, I think a parent yelling, this kid sucks, get him off the ice, that parent should be out immediately. Should be somebody walking up to him going, yeah, you're gone. I don't care. Yeah, your kid's on the ice, good for him, cool. You can't be yelling and screaming about how much these kids suck. They're little kids. But anyways, let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.